Hello and welcome to Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. This is my podcast about finding our successes in the gifts of who we truly are. These are conversations with people who know what that looks and feels like. They've been through it. And I do this in the hopes that it provides an inspiration to find ways to use your unique gifts in pursuing your passions, making your dreams come true, and engaging with the world in the way that you were really created to serve. I hope it gets deep because that is where we find the good stuff, but do not get it twisted. This is also about the fun of life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. So let's dare to be brave, be free, be you together. Now, my guest today is a best-selling cookbook author and journalist whose passion for food and culture of her Indian heritage inspired her to leave her job as a business reporter in print, television, and radio. Sharing the family recipes that she learned cooking with her grandfather with her own daughters turned into a popular and awarded top food blog called Indian as Apple Pie. And she has brought those same recipes and cooking skills to her regular features on NPR, The Wall Street Journal, Food and Wine Magazine, WGN TV, and stations across the US and Canada. You can find her line of spices, sauces, and housewares, Indian as Apple Pie as well, online and in many Whole Food stores. Just in time to use them with her new cookbook, her third one, that is coming out later this month called Instant Pot Indian. I am honored to welcome Anupy Singla to the Fearless Authenticity podcast. Hey, Anupy, how you doing?
Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. This is so awesome.
I am so glad we get a chance to talk again. It's funny because there are a lot of times when we were working at the same places or circling around each other. Then, of course, when you moved on into doing your blog and cooking, you would come on the show I was on. And It's been fascinating to see how you move through those transitions and the whole journey. Now, I want to start with, especially since I've gone through some of this journey myself, not with food, but the transition from TV. I want to talk about how this journey began with your grandfather. What were some of the biggest lessons you learned from him? Like looking back, because clearly when you were a kid cooking with him in the kitchen, it was just hanging out with your grandpa, right?
Well, yeah. And just to kind of explain and kind of set the stage, so people don't realize, because I have this weird accent, I was born in India and then came when I was 3 to Pennsylvania, learned English from Sesame Street on a little black and white TV in Pottstown, Pennsylvania, and then basically visited my dad's village, which is a really teeny tiny village in Punjab, which is a northern state. And my grandfather was this foodie. He never spoke English. He would just tell me about all of these dishes, and he would always bring in all of these recipes from his travels back to the village, have the cooks that he had in the village replicate them. He just loved his food. And when he would visit us in America, he would come for 3 to 6 months at a time. One day, when I was about 10 or 12, my parents were out. He said, I want to teach you how to make this dish. It was eggplant and potatoes. And it was just a way my mouth's watering thinking about it, but just like the little things that he would do. The end of the eggplant, he said, keep it in there because it has a lot of great meat and juicy meat of the eggplant in it. You suck it out at the end when you're eating your dish. The spices go in just so. Cut it this way. It should be very spicy and hot. That's what our region is known for. And for me, I just felt like, one, it was delicious. But the other part of it is being an immigrant in any country is challenging. We had challenges in the house, but I always felt like we would go through our day of challenges and then stop and eat dinner together. And this was a delicious, spicy, authentic Indian meal in Pennsylvania. King of Prussia, Pennsylvania was where we ended up. And all of the previous crazy of the day went away and we had the food. So that's what so much of that represented to me. And all I wanted to do when I started this was I wanted to have those food memories, whether it's Indian or it's Italian for you, or it's, African-American, it's Southern, whatever it is. I wanted to have those food memories to pass down to my children so that they would be rooted in their culture through these recipes that I often took for granted, but now I rely on.
There's so much to love in that, Anupy. And I think the thing that I'm hearing too is there's a layer of self-care in it as well, like this soothing thing that food brings to us and our families, not only for our personal care and nourishment, but also kind of this nourishment of the bonds that we have together. How did that play into your decision to make this a career?
So it's interesting. I was a morning reporter for CLTV, which was our 24-hour news station in Chicago. And I'd been reporting prior to for other stations as well. But I'd be out in the live truck and I would be like crying in the corner. My photographers, like in between shots, because my babies were little. My husband was a consultant. He still is. He travels Monday through Thursday. And I'd be like, oh my God, I don't know what they're eating. I feel so bad. Like I can't make this work because the morning shift, as you know, you're in that station at 3 a.m. It is just a lot. And other people do make it work and I give them a lot of credit. For me, I just could not cook the way I wanted, the way my mother had for us. So it really, for me, was this moment of, okay, what do I want more? What's most important? How do I make this happen? And it really just was this idea to take a break. Let me take a break. Let me cook all of the foods that I've grown up with and I love for my two girls that were babies back then. And will they like it or will they, be like, I still want boxed foods? And Jeanne, can I tell you, my kids have grown up to be the most amazing eaters. And that's what I talk a lot about is how do you feed your young kids healthy foods? Well, one, you eat it yourself. You show them. You don't just tell them. A lot of stuff show, not tell, that we learn in journalism too. But then also we surround them with that. I don't say don't have a treat once in a while, but that's a once in a while thing. Your day-to-day is the food you love. And they've grown up. And I think for me, the idea was to give them something I didn't have because back in high school, I was one of three growing up in going to Upper Marion High School in King of Prussia, Pennsylvania, Indians, South Asians in our high school. And maybe it was four, but literally very few. And I was embarrassed of the food that we had in the house because no one really knew back then, growing up in the 80s, early 80s, what Indian was. The most ethnic you got in Philly was Italian, honestly, at the time. And I didn't want my kids to grow up feeling embarrassed. So I gave them a ton of food. Now their teachers ask for the food. They're so excited. My daughter asked me if she could have a copy of my new book. She wants to try to resell it online. I'm like, sweetie, that does not work with books. Maybe the other stuff, we're not going to add any more value. It's not going to happen. She's like, well, just sign it. I think it'll add some value. We're going to try this out. But they're really proud of not just the books, not just me, but the food. And that was my goal. And so I'm so proud of that.
I love that. And I love that you've inspired these budding entrepreneurs who are like, wait, how can I hustle some more money out of this for my mama? Or I'm sorry, for me, for my mama, for me. But there's a lot to unpack in what you just said. I want to start with how you overcame that embarrassment because, our culture, what people see, what people assume when they see us, we don't have a lot of power about what they do with what we give them, but we do have power about what we give them. And sometimes I think we forget that we communicate our embarrassment, our shame, our, desire to fit in, not necessarily the gift of who we are, where we're from. How did you, rectify or get in alignment with your cultural identity and also the very real pain of feeling different? Because I think that's the reason why a lot of us give up some of our authentic identity is because we feel like we're alone.
It's such a great question. I think the real answer is it's an ongoing process. I still feel that I am working on all of that. But I will say, I think it's important to celebrate the wins, because there's so much that has happened over the last 30 or 40 years that's been so positive. So much understanding of different cultures and where folks are from and wanting to learn. And I love that. So I like to first start, I'm a Libra, I like balance. And so I want to start from the positivity. And then I want to say as well, the times that I'm not feeling comfortable, I really try to be as introspective as possible to see when I'm not feeling comfortable. One, sometimes it's coming from the outside. Sometimes it's really truly coming from internal already, like this is what happened when I was a kid. I'm just being really honest. Somebody said to me the other day, it was a doorman at my mother-in-law's building. He's from the South Side, and he's the sweetest man in the world. And we're always having these conversations about culture and all of this. And he's like, you must have been really popular when you were young, because I chat with him all the time. And I was like, you don't know how happy that makes me feel, because I was the most unpopular in my own mind because I never fit in, and people didn't go out of their way to help me fit in, or I thought maybe in their minds they did. And I was like, it's so funny, the perception changes to other people, but then internally I still feel that discomfort. So I think it's just an ongoing process, and I think folks need to be just as intuitive as possible to say, even if I feel uncomfortable, I'll find the people that make me feel comfortable. And I'm going to just think about why I might have reacted this way. And also, there's times when I'm making people feel that way probably. So how do we then be introspective about that and tweak, as we go? A lot of bad behavior comes from just pure insecurities that we feel from younger years.
Yep. And not healing that stuff. And I think having the conversation with it and being willing to face it, because the thing is, we don't want to look at it, because the last thing you want to do is remember like those bad moments from high school, or, the times when you didn't feel that. And I think that's the reason why we want to grow up so badly and so quickly when we're young, is because we think that's going to be over. And damn, if you don't find out when you're an adult, like, damn it, I still got to deal with this stuff. Yeah. Oh, okay. That's the whole point. Right. That's a lot. Okay. And I also want to go back to the piece about your daughters, like showing them and things like that. Cause I have seen some things on your social that I've been like, ooh, that's brave. And you talk very, very candidly about how you parent your daughters and things that happen. And I love that about your feed. But this latest thing, is it 100 days without dessert?
Yeah, I decided to do 100 days, no dessert. Do you see right now, can I just say,
great.
My skin always broke out when I was young. That was one of my insecurities, especially in TV. It was very hard. I literally just use a little mineral powder. I know most, TV, whatever, they would get very upset with me, put foundation on. I have zero makeup, like other than that, zero makeup on, and like lipstick, whatever. But the eating, it's key. The Indian culture teaches us that our gut affects what our face looks like, what our body looks like, everything. I'm not saying anyone else has to do no dessert. I didn't say no sugar, because I still do fruit. I still have a little honey here and there. But that no dessert kept me on point after last year saying I'd never be able to do it. Slow and steadily, now not missing it and having swap outs. So there's a really interesting internet trend that was the frozen Snickers bar. I normally don't do this, get trends and cook them and make them, but this looked intriguing. So you take a date, split it in half, take that pit out, fill it with a nut butter. I use peanut butter. I love peanut butter. And then put a pecan in there, or any other nut. And then you can dip it in a little dark chocolate, just an end, okay? I just put a few dark chocolate chips on there. And then you sprinkle it with some sea salt. Put it on parchment paper. Stick it in the freezer, Jeanne. I'm telling you. Yeah. And once it's frozen, you pull it out and you just either cut it in half and then you eat this thing that tastes like a bleeping Snickers bar. Can we just say it's so good? Now my husband will not try it because he's on the other side where he's doing dessert every day, 3 times a day. That's his goal. That's fine. But my daughter came home from college the other day and she's like, Mom, this is so good. And she's eating them. It's just dates, peanut butter, a few dark chocolate chips. And it's not my own idea. This was out there, so I'm not taking any claims to it. But my point is, find those swap outs that give you the satisfaction. It doesn't always have to be a dessert. And then what you do is you go back and have your dessert once every week or 2 weeks and love it, you know?
I'm liking this. I'm liking this. You see, I wrote it down. Like all good reporters have a pad and paper right next to them, and you're like, I will be trying that. How has though taking back that power? Because I think, one of the things that I've learned in my self-care journey, because I see that as so intimately tied to success, that we struggle with things sometimes because we think they're so superficial, right? That, because food consumption, weight, how you look, has more of the focus of health than the feeling that comes from it on the inside. And even though I think I've always known that because my mother was of that mindset, it is still difficult to fight the external pressures of shifting, like trying to keep your focus on health as feeling well and feeling well as the thing that leads to your success. And especially as a mother of daughters, what has this journey of creating food that is healthful, that is based in these cultural principles about how food determines how your health, your real health is. How has that evolved for you?
Well, I mean, I think that, for me, especially because I went more plant-based in my eating before it was even a thing. I don't even need to really talk about it that much. That was in grad school way back when, where I realized that the way I was eating was negatively affecting my health and the way I was feeling. So I've been doing that for a long time, but I also don't tell my family how they have to eat and what they have to eat. When they were younger, you can manage it a little bit, but like my husband is a omnivore. He eats meat. He's comfortable. I can't change him. And that's part of the journey is in Indian families to realize we're very mixed eaters. We grew up this way. My dad is a hunter. He likes to hunt. My grandfather did as well in the village. And my mother and my grandmother were such staunch vegetarians that in my grandmother's home in India, you couldn't even go over the threshold with any meat. Like that's how it's tied to religion. So it's really just this feeling of understanding where people are coming from and why. Sometimes we jump on bandwagons thinking we need to live to the label. And I just don't. And I think because we've been in journalism, I really believe that authenticity, the truth of what I tell people is more important than getting the next interview. So for example, if someone says, Anupy, are you totally vegan? Even though one of my books was vegan Indian, I'll be honest. I'll say, no, I have yogurt once in a while. I might go out and have a piece of fish once in a while, very rare, but once in a while. But 99%, I'm plant-based. But I'm not going to take that interview because I'm not going to let someone think something differently, because then they think the journey should be like that and easy. And when they can't do it, then on their end, they get disappointed and upset with themselves. So I think if we have more influencers out there that are, true influencers, just speak the truth. Tell me what you're actually doing. I have people that I know say they're one way, and then at home I see what they're doing. You and I come across all of this. I mean, just full disclosure, tell me who you are. Be honest. Those are people I want to follow. And that's how I want to represent myself. And I think that's the best messaging for my girls and the kids. And also just surrounding them with great food in the fridge and having things prepped, having things ready. They can go to grab. Their friends come to our house and they are loving the food. Often friends that have never had Indian food. If they don't like spicy, it's not a problem. We just cook it without the heat. And I always say, if you want to try it and you don't like it, you're not hurting my feelings. It's not a reflection of what you think of my culture. If you just don't like that dish, it's okay. Like we got to be okay with saying people have different tastes. And maybe I can learn something from them. So I just try to keep an open mind as much as I try to treat people the way I'd like them to treat me, I think, at the end of the day.
And it's so simple, but yet we end up being troubled by it, or we struggle with it, right? Even though it's there. And I think sometimes what we have done for a living in the past ends up becoming a gift in the future, because when you're taught to engage with things and ask and use your discernment and go, wait a minute, this doesn't sound right, or this isn't what this actually means, then you can actually have a dialogue with something that's very different than jumping to these conclusions. Because I also think sometimes when people put something out there, people make their assumptions about it and they put labels on you, and then you feel like you have to live up to the label because it's like, oh, is that what I am? And that was a struggle of mine at work, right? Especially in TV and stuff. It's like, oh, you do this, therefore you are this kind of reporter. You can't do this or you can't do that. Well, no, I can do that too, but I like doing that. But that's what you want me to do now? Oh, okay. Did you have any challenges like that, especially in business as a woman at the time that you were doing business reporting? Was that a challenge?
I mean, yeah, I've fought for every job I got. And I want people to hear that, because I think they assume, and I don't know, we haven't done a breakdown on the newsroom yet in society. I think we should definitely go that route, and someone should be breaking down what really happens in these newsrooms, because, who's reporting on that stuff? Because they're not easy. And I'm glad that I had the opportunities I had, but there were a lot of times when I fought tooth and nail to be able to do things, cover certain stories when it was going to be given to someone else. Had to step up and have confidence in myself. Maybe go on a live and, hear chatter when you get back to the newsroom where people are speaking negatively about your live shot. And my thing is, just tell me, like, how can we improve? Like, I know one of, we taught you had sent over some questions. And one of them was like, what do you think is your greatest asset? And for me, it's just be a team player. Like, I don't want to steal your thunder. You're Jeanne. You're doing Jeanne really well. I don't need to do exactly that. I want you to shine. I want to give you credit for what you do, but I also want to have an opportunity to shine. And so I always felt like everybody, at work was really important in terms of what they do. When you start embracing people that way and not stealing an idea, saying it's your own, but also getting the credit for your idea when it is your idea, those kind of things like really uplift folks. And I don't think we have to be, kumbaya about it. I think that could just be, that's just the way we are, because I love it when someone comes up with a great idea. Like, that's so cool. And I love to see their face when they're like, the photographer, came up with an idea. I'm like, that was his idea or her idea. They want to do a better job the next time, come up with more ideas the next time. So that's the kind of person I like to be. And I think having my own company enabled me to create that environment.
Sis, that is the biggest fact that ever facted, because, I think a lot of times in competitive industries, even though competition is supposed to bring, the level up and it's supposed to rise things, a lot of times what happens is people want to hog the spotlight, because they feel like if it just gets a little bit dimmed by somebody else's light, then it's going to go out completely. And that's just not true. But I have decided, one lesson I did learn from working in the media, and I still love it. And I'm not saying it's all bad, and I don't think you are either. But one thing I have understood, I've come to understand, that if somebody wants you to turn your light down or to dim your light, there is no possible way you can turn it down enough to please them, because it is the fact that the light is even there. Would you say that, well, what would you say has been your biggest challenge, either in the transition from working full time for somebody else to starting your own business from scratch? as business and entrepreneurial folks, we talk about failing a lot because it happens a lot when you're starting a business, that idea of failing forward. What has been your biggest challenge, either in life or business, or as a parent, or whatever sphere it comes from? And what have you learned from it? And have you turned that into a process or a system for making the best out of those challenges?
Yeah, it's a great question. What has been one of my biggest challenges is, I grew up outside of Philly. I'm a loudmouth, right? I'm going to tell you if something's bothering me. We have opportunities to broadcast everything now to the world. And I think what I've learned, especially owning a business, is the team aspect is super important. I might have a bad day. I may not like how someone has treated me on a certain day. I may not even like how a producer or a buyer from a store or whatever it is. The minute you decide to put that out, you better own that you've put it out, and you better own the repercussions that are coming from it, because then you're not part of their team. I've had folks who I think they try to, that's why I don't like to jump on other people's stars. I don't like to take flight from other people's journey. Like, they'll say something negatively on something I've posted that's really unnecessary. And it's not even a criticism, but it's like, well, I don't think XYZ. Well, it's because my post got some play and you added that in, but you're a close friend of mine. So all you needed to do was send me a note privately. We could have handled all of it privately. Or, oh my God, you got a typo. Oh no, XYZ, which isn't a big deal. But the thing is, we just have to put it out publicly to kind of gain attention. So I constantly watch and manage how I interact on social. I am myself. People are like, oh, I follow you. Oh my gosh, you're so truthful. I'm like, well, if I was completely truthful, I wouldn't have any friends, because you can't be. Social is not about being completely truthful. It is just like, I think, and no one's really talking about this, it is just like society with friends. You're at a party. Would you be completely truthful about anything? You wouldn't have any friends, because we have thoughts coming into our head, whether they're real or true or not. They're coming in, they're coming out. So I just always curate. I shouldn't even say manage, curate my messaging. And I'm never opposed to saying, okay, that didn't work, and it sent the wrong vibe. Maybe that's not the right message. Let's pull that off. I see so many people that, it's interesting, and I never put names to things, but who will gripe about their bosses online by name or by, you're at the job, and I'm thinking, and then you come around and ask me if I'll hire you? I can't, because now I see the pattern. Like, you've told me who you are. Like, that's a great motto to live by. Show me who you are. I should believe you. I'm not saying lie. I'm not saying, but oftentimes if I don't like a restaurant or something, I'm just not talking about it. Like, why do we have to always go to the negative, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
What's interesting about this, because this is a conversation I have with people about fearless authenticity all the time. So that'll be my next question to you. But what I'd like to talk about, because this is something I say when people push back with me with fearless, they're like, I can't be fearless or authentic. And then I'm like, no. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying, because you can be yourself and still be a polite human being, somebody who knows how to work with other people. Like, for the example I always use is, you would not say the things to your grandmother that you would say to your best girlfriends when you're out, at a party. Some of those things you might not even tell your husbands or your partners, whatever you got at home. And you certainly wouldn't say some of those things to your children, even though they are true, even though they are part of you. All of the things of who we are, we bring to every situation. We just don't bring them the same way. And I think that kind of discernment is missing today, because people either go from one extreme where they're pretending to be something they're not to make it palatable, or they're letting it all hang out and pushing everybody away. And it's like, honey, it takes fearlessness to do both of those things. I think. I don't know what I think that's what you're trying to say, or what you're saying from that. And also, I think when people let all those things hang out, they don't always realize what they're actually telling people about themselves, because they may not even realize it and don't know themselves well enough.
Great points. And I think too, your mood could change the next day and your feeling could change the next day. And I think I guess I just look at social as an extension of my public face. And so I have to be cautious and think about what those repercussions could be. A great example would be, your kid's school. There's things going on up and down every day. If you decided to post it all with names and with receipts and all of this, there's no solving the problem at that point internally. And that's why I don't use social as my support group. I love social media for what it is, but I try to really cultivate my direct friendships and, my family more. I think it's what I've really learned in the last 10 years. It's not always been this way, but social was really fun in the beginning. So you felt like, oh, you got this, voice, but at the same time, there's a responsibility with the voice. And if we're not balancing those, then you're not really being effective, probably at the end of the day. So even I'm really careful, like if somebody talks to me about something they've done and it could be a great news story, I'm not a reporter anymore. It's not my job to vocalize something phenomenal that's going on and break a story anymore. And there are urges to do that because oh my God, I just found out XYZ, I want to talk about it. But it's just being, I think, first of all, realizing what is your path and what your platform is. Like my platform is food. I'll give you a great example. Okay, so on my website, Indiana's Apple Pie, or on my Facebook page, not too long ago, I posted a photo of my dog, Oliver. He's this 50-pound Australian Shepherd, and it was with food. I didn't even think about what was on food, right? The photo was about him. And so the food, okay, to some did not look so appetizing because it was just like this eggplant dish. Eggplant you can't make look really delicious no matter,
But it's good. It's my favorite, one of my favorite vegetables, like
it
top
tastes
3.
Amazing. So these people started posting things like, oh, you're a food blogger. Your food looks like, and saying expletive and this and that. A few people, not too many. So I just said, listen, I really don't care for that tone. Like you could have said that to me personally. It just didn't really even help to put it out publicly. Like you put it on my page. I appreciate, you're right. I've got a public facing, page, but saying that looks like, diarrhea on a plate is not something that I think elevates anything or any discussion. It makes people feel uncomfortable. And I'm sensitive about my food to begin with. I'm very honest, went through a lot of stuff growing up. But I said the picture was really about the dog. And so, I have to say, I have to just take you off this page if we don't know how to behave as adults. So I got a lot of backlash from just 2 to 3 people on that. And that's fine. So I started a series of photos called Ugly Food, Cute Dog. So now if the food looks bad, that's awesome. Because the point of the photo is the dog looking at the food. So, and people think it's hilarious.
Because it is.
So own your mess and, and broadcast it, but also know I'd like to keep my lines pretty clear. And it's my page. So, if you curse at me and this and that, I'm not a punching bag. I'm not going to continue with it. And you're really just 0.8 of the population. Like you're really just one person. And I don't keep that in my head. Try not to, just kind of take it and get rid of it because most of the people are there for the food. So let's stick to the food and ugly food, cute dog photos once in a while.
I love it. I love it. And you bring up a good point about boundaries, like understanding what bothers you and what you want to include and what you want to exclude and what you're not going to let, like you can do that. You're just not going to do it here. And I think a lot of us haven't been taught, especially as women. I don't know if it's other cultural, influences in it, but, we're not always empowered to tell people what we don't want as women.
Yeah. And I think too, it feels like, especially being in media and news, that you have to open yourself up to everything. And I think too, like everyone is different. They're going to operate differently. I just don't. And I was listening to James Clear, who's the author of Atomic Habits, one of my favorite books. And he talks a lot about that, how he curated his social media pages very clearly over the years. And I think for me, like my religion is Hindu, so I try to be very, I'm more spiritual than I am religious, but every sort of, thought, right? It sends an airwave. You're thinking about that. I don't want the negativity flowing into my day-to-day. It takes so much energy for me to just even sit with it. So I'd rather just not engage in that space. And that's why I really don't, like, one of my big things this year has been, I don't look at social media until noon. I don't even open my news until noon. I work out. I have a very tight morning regimen and workout and program, and I do things for me, including recipe test, including engage with my family, play with my dog, whatever it is. I don't let any of the outside stuff come in until 12 o'clock, and I have an alarm set on my phone. That's when I get to engage a little bit and look. Because I don't even post, because once I was posting, then I had to look and see who was liking. I just don't.
I love that. How has getting that schedule, because you hear about that, and this is actually like the second or third time Atomic Habits has come up in this podcast. And I find it really interesting that so many successful people, and I've also had this conversation with people outside of the podcast about how that book has impacted them. What do you think having that schedule in the morning has made you more productive, more successful, more generative in your ideas and things? And is it something that you've always done to a certain degree, or was it harder to do as an entrepreneur? Because I know that's one of the things, like, our lives are so regimented as media people that I didn't realize how much I depended on having to physically be someplace to have a routine or a ritual even.
So I think it's everything. So I'll tell you, a couple of probably 6 to 7 months ago, I was not really feeling that I was moving ahead in a positive way with my business. Like, it felt like I was stuck. Well, I would say more like a year and a half ago. And probably like actually pre-pandemic. So now it's been probably about 3 years, where my husband was like, okay, so you're working on your business, and he's a serial entrepreneur. He has his own consulting firm, all of it. He's like, it's 6:30 a.m. and you're not out of bed. I'm like, don't be telling me what I need to be doing. I take care of this. I take care of the kids. You just go off to work and you travel, blah, blah. He's like, no, I'm just letting you know that I've been up for an hour and a half and you are still sleeping. And I just want to let you know that's up to you. But if you're going to tell me that you want to work this business, it was real tough, straight talk. So I was like, I don't like that he's saying that. Like, it really disturbs me. Like, I want to do something, like put something in his drink or something at night. I would never. I'm joking.
Is that why those knives are on the wall?
Yeah. Wait, yeah. Oh, that big one. See the big one? No, I'm joking, folks. I have really bad humor being from the East Coast. So people don't always get me in the Midwest.
I'm laughing.
But you get me. You get me. So yeah, I was like, okay, there's something wrong with this picture. What's wrong? I'm not efficient and I'm not feeling good. And that's what I say, like, always go back to how you feel. It doesn't matter what's on the outside. Forget about all that size, all this. I don't care. I don't care what the scale says. I don't care about any of it. You know how you feel, only you know. So I was like, okay, I'm scrambling. I'm running. I'm not getting enough done. I'm feeling my brain is cloudy because I'm putting the news on in the morning and listening to that as background. I'm cloudy. I can't think. So I just decided during the pandemic, we worked out every single morning. We did something. We still got up early. I was getting up at 4, and then I'm like, why am I doing that during the pandemic? That's silly. Yeah. And then I did the 5, and I stuck with the 5:30. Still no. So now I'm at the 5:30. I was able to do that. It has changed everything. And the workout in the morning is just so phenomenal for your body. Now, what that means is you're going to go to bed on time. Okay. So it's got to go backwards. Like, you can eventually get to it, but you have to sleep on time. I like my TV at night. I had to turn a little bit of that down and off. So there's some things you're going to have to adjust. But the workout, journaling in the morning, a green juice in the morning, a green smoothie, not juice, smoothie, very different than just juice. So those kind of things. And one thing that, Atomic Habits says is you don't have to be perfect. Like, you don't have to do this every morning, but try not to miss 2 days in a row. Whatever you're doing, whatever you're trying to do, whatever you're striving to do, people say, oh, I feel like a failure. I didn't do my workout this morning. Who cares? Are you going tomorrow? Yeah, that's all that counts. Like, get back on. That's how winners, I'm told and I'm seeing, they just don't let it get to them to the point where now it's been a week and I haven't gotten back to it, right? So that's the go, go, go. And also love what you do. I love what I do. So it gets me moving. And you know what, Jeanne, I'll tell you, it was not easy. I have turned off the news.
Girl, that was the easiest thing for me to do. I'm gonna be real. One of the best things that happened to me was not having to watch the news on a regular basis. I didn't realize how much it affected me until I stopped doing it. And one of the things that I loved during the pandemic that seemed to be happening more were those digests that people started sending out, because it's easier to wait on the news when you know it's coming to you and you can engage with it in the way that you choose. You can just read the headlines in the little email they send. You can click on something if you decide you want to know more, but you're making a conscious choice. That was one of the best things that happened when it came to that kind of, because I understand that cloud. You feel like Pigpen from Peanuts with like this little cloud just following you. Sometimes it gets this high and it's bad. Now, one thing I want to dig in a little bit deeper with your Atomic Habits, how has that translated? How did it translate into not feeling stuck in your business anymore?
Yeah. So something that it's so funny, we're talking about I was like, but I love telling people about it because it just has changed everything for me. So like the way we are today, what we've done today is really your habits from 6 months ago, like you're reaping the rewards, or maybe not, because whatever you've kind of done daily every day. So I'm an idea generator. I'm always that person who comes home with a ton of ideas, and I think so many of us are. But when it comes to putting the work in, I don't want to do that. What? I got to get up every day now, and I'm going to, so it's like, I want to interview my mom about her life, but starting and doing it the one time and setting up the equipment is such an overload and pain. Like, oh my God. But the thing is, that's the process, and those are the systems that you have to put into place. And this is something I've actually said for a long time. When you have really strong systems, like you're going to go pay bills, have it all in one spot, have that checkbook ready, have that one bag, you pull it out, have that one space, have a home, right? So you can be more efficient, which I'm not. I'm not saying that I'm there yet, but I'm trying to get there. And what's happened is, because I spend more time producing recipes and really what is the core of what I do, I'm finding that people find that material, they loop back to purchasing the product. It just all plays together. I've gotten so many more opportunities. We just got, I say we, but it's really just me and my assistant. So the two of us got onto the, it's called the Poet program at Whole Foods. So literally now for another, few weeks, they're going to be showcasing my lentils, which are Indian lentils, all at Whole Foods in the kiosks in Illinois. So like, that's huge. Like getting that order together, Jeanne, I still have a crimp in my thumb because there's like this certain movement you do with the labels. We do everything like in-house. And my husband's like, what the heck? And he always says, he's like, he's like this high performing consultant. He's like, how did you get on another shelf? I'm like, well, what I did was I called, I went in, I was super nice and polite. And I said, please. He goes, wait, what? What? You're on another shelf because you just were nice? I go, yeah, because I don't know. And then I followed up like 3, 4, 5, 6 times. And he's like, wait a minute. So now we're on like 30 shelves. It started with 2. Like, that's insane. But it's little by little. And that's the thing. The daily things that you do, that one extra phone call I make, that one extra email I send doesn't feel like much in the day. Like even now I'm like, I don't want to do that. I'd rather go sit there and have, whatever. But it will pay off. You have to have a belief in that. And you have to feel like your excitement, right? That dopamine hit is coming from like putting that line through that thing that you were going to do on your to-do list. And I'm the world's biggest procrastinator, like honestly. But now I'm learning I like writing everything down, get it all out of my head and all I do is, I don't have anything fancy. This is my to-do list. It's a notebook.
That's a hell of a to-do list, ma'am.
Oh, this is just the one page. I've got about 3 others. And then you got to look at your to-do list. That's the part that's going to be in the sequel of Atomic Habits. So when you write it, you got to know where it is. Okay. Got to know where it is because I lose this thing all the time. And then you got to look at it and then you got to do it. So there's a system there.
I love it. Because you know what? I laugh at myself because when I'm going through social media or online and things, I will bookmark and save things till the end of time and never go back to that good bookmark file. I even have it in Instagram organized into different little folders. When they gave us the option of organizing it, I have them all in there. And I swear I may have gone back in there one time to do it. And so sometimes it's about out of sight, out of mind. But I love that you had it within hand's reach and a pen right next to it. And does it stay with you all the time?
Yeah, now I'm really starting to keep it. And the other good thing is too, you don't have to actually move around with it because you could take a quick picture of this page, right? And now you've got it with you. I was notorious for missing meetings. Like, do what works for you. I just use the note section of my phone now. I don't even like Google Calendar, any of that, because I don't like the pinging. My phone is off. There's no pinging. I hear nothing all day because I can't focus if I hear anything. So I just have in the note section my appointments and I just type it in. This is the day. It's so old school, but it works for me because I don't like too much tech around me distracting me from the cooking, and the day-to-day writing. So it just is me. My husband laughs. He's like, you are so old school. If people knew, I'm like, I don't know what to say. It works for me. I enjoy it.
Whatever works for you is good for me. Like simple stuff that will never break down. That will never need another security update from Apple or, anybody else. All right, I'm moving into my last couple questions I always ask everybody. What is your proudest achievement so far? And what do you still dream of doing?
Wow. I'd say my proudest achievement is the fact that my 2 girls that are now in college, how did that happen? Both of them love their Indian roots. Like they are okay to be American and Indian and love everything about their family and connecting with their family. But then also, I think even prouder is that I've taught them to ask others about what they've gone through and how they eat and what they love, to also respect everyone else's journey. And so to me, that is just, I love it because it's like, now we're passing it on to that next generation.
I love that. And it's such a beautiful way to go into Asian American Heritage Month next month. I think, earlier and when we first started talking, you were talking about how, things were very different when we were children and we didn't know things. And now how celebrating those wins, I've gotten really good at celebrating the incremental wins because I used to wait until I would get the big win. And sometimes that just takes too damn long. You need a celebration along the way. But it's those moments and these times that we take to be able to honor something. And just the fact that exists is a celebration in and of itself. So the next question is, what do you still dream of doing or accomplishing?
So, okay. I should give you my list because sometimes I feel like I haven't done much at all. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like
you're on your 3rd cookbook coming out next month, ma'am, or later this month, ma'am.
Thank you. Yeah, no, you're right. Like it's amazing. So cooking show is the next thing. So I've got, I'm working with WTTW right here in Chicago to do a cooking show, Indian cooking, and we're working on that. We're hoping that's going to be soon. And the goal is really to go, national with the product line. So right now we're in that Midwest corridor, working out some of the kinks and all of this. But the goal is to really put authentic Indian ingredients everywhere, and really to get folks using this book, which is Instant Pot Indian, and loving it. And I think the key is to Indian food becoming known is people feeling comfortable to cook it at home. That's the key. So that's what I really want to continue to help people do. Oh, and then by the way, Jeanne, I'm doing a food tour in India in 2024. So if anybody wants to join in, stay in touch. We're organizing the itinerary right now for all that.
I'm loving that. You may have a guest, my dear. I love all this. I did see the video on your website for the show, and I was wondering when that was, because I was like, how did I miss this? So that's the preparation of turning it into something. Well, good luck with that. I love how you have combined what you have done in the past with what your passions are and made them come to life. I think that is such a beautiful way to express all these things that you are and all these things that you've experienced. I think it's just beautiful. The final question I always ask everybody: when do you feel, Anupy, that you are at your best, truest, most authentic expression of yourself?
Wow. I think I have to say, I really feel like I always am. And that can be good and bad, depending on who's on the receiving end. I think I just am always, and I have to kind of tone it back down, because I don't know how to be anything else but just honest and direct. Some things I'll keep to myself, in any given moment, but really all the time. That's why I can't understand what else is out there, because I feel like, why wouldn't you want to be authentic all the time? That's like so cool to be yourself. It took me for so long to be able to say that. So I'm going to just embrace it now and enjoy it.
I love it. Isn't that part of middle life great?
I love it. It's been a journey, and I think that I just think that's the beauty of when we get to that point, and we can help our kids get to that point sooner maybe than we did. That's a real gift.
Anupy, thank you so much for your time today. This has been a great conversation. I love how your brain works, ma'am.
Thank you. And I love you. And I'm going to give you a cooking class on Indian food soon, I hope, right? You're going to take me up on.
Sis, I'm in. I'm already, I love the naan. And oh God, there's because y'all got red beans and rice too. I'm from Louisiana. And so when I found out y'all had red beans and rice, ma'am, I was like,
where is it? I put it on the cover. Rajma. Yes.
I'm in.
All right, let's do it.
My favorite part of this conversation with Anupy was this idea of how we connect our work and our lives and weave every piece of it together so seamlessly, how one can feed the other and back and forth. At least that's the whole picture that I got. So many of the things that she talked about, we can start doing right now. I'm telling you, that Snickers substitution thing with the peanut butter in the dates, trying that immediately. But more on topic advice, social media, and it's in the title. It hit me so strongly. Own your mess. Broadcast it if you choose. Cultivate your online and offline friendships and friend groups. And don't open those apps until afternoon. It does change how your morning does. When that's the first thing that I tried of the things that we talked about. The other thing that I agree with and that I still struggle with too. So I was actually relieved to hear that even though she's figured things out, it takes a while to implement. And that is having really strong systems so you could be more efficient. Everything connected to a certain task is in one place, ready to go. Everything has a home. I love it. because there's always more room for doing that, giving things their home and letting them live there, even if there are things you don't like to do, or at least that's how I connect to it. And then the other piece about looking within, being committed to being as introspective as you can be, to see when you're having an emotion, what's connected to it. Like when you're not feeling comfortable, understanding that, yeah, it can be coming from something outside of ourselves, something that is causing the reaction, but we also need to ask the next step. What is that? Is it a reflection of or calling out something that's inside of us? And if so, what is it? Is it something that happened to us recently, something that we haven't healed from our past and it's coming up? Because you know what? If it comes up once, it's going to keep coming up. And it's being willing to look, for me. The idea that you're willing to say, okay, this may not have gone right, but how did I participate in it? What information is it giving me? What new thing am I learning? And then the two ways of expressing fearless authenticity that she expressed, I just love that we don't need to jump on bandwagons thinking that we need to live to the label. Not living to a label is the essence of what I'm talking about in this podcast. And also, very simply, just speak the truth. There are a variety of ways you can do that, but when you lay it out that way, then that's a really fast track to the authenticity. You got to know the truth first, too. So I think that goes back to the last point about being willing to look. Thank you, Anupy, for the great conversation, the food tips, the life hacks that we could take action on now, and the inspiration. Check out Anupy's latest book, Instant Pot Indian, and her website, Indian as Apple Pie, for her products. Support her new TV show. Go on a food tour with her of India next year. Do it all. And you know what? I appreciate you, my Fearless Authenticity listeners, for your attention and your support. I would not do it without you. This is what I would not do without you. I also could not do it without my amazing production team. I appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you for your hard work putting this out every single week. I hope you will like, rate, review, download, subscribe, and share this episode. It is available everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube. You can find me there at Ms. Jeanne Sparrow, as well as on Facebook and TikTok at that handle. You can also find me on Instagram and Twitter at JM Sparrow. Drop by to say hi, share your comments, your questions, your thoughts, your suggestions, whatever it is. I'm always happy to hear from you. This has been Fearless Authenticity with Jeanne Sparrow. See you again soon.